This is the first time that we've gotten everybody all together from all different disciplines to talk about something so critical to Connecticut, which is preventing targeted violence.
I felt very compelled to be here today. As a high school, we're always interested in knowing how can we make our learning environment safer.
I think it's vital that we work together to ensure our children are safe. They are our future.
This event comes at a very crucial time for our state and our nation. Today's symposium, ladies and gentlemen, is because we are at a dangerous inflection point. Nearly every day, vivid examples of targeted violence, political violence, school shooting, these things are becoming ever so frequent in our society. Dangerous threats, even assassinations, have become more and more common. The number one question that I have received over decades of experience is, Chief Higgins, what are you doing to keep my child safe? So today, I want that question to remain in the forefront for all of us. Not just what are we doing to keep our children safe, but what more can be done.
One of our highest priorities is to keep our kids safe. That's our North Star, and we're just getting started. Sandy Hook and Parkland, just sort of a reminder of the nexus between mental health and distress. We put counseling in all of our schools, so there's somebody that they can talk to. So I urge each and every one of you as you opine today on what else we can do, and I'll be listening very carefully, especially in this day and age where some of our worst impulses can get so amplified electronically in social media. How do we make people feel safe going forward?
Before I was a leader in violence prevention, I was a mom. I have two sons. Both of them were students at Sandy Hook School the day of the shooting in December 14, 2012. My youngest son, Dylan, should have turned 19 this year. Instead, he was shot 5 times and died instantly in the arms of his special education assistant, who also died while trying to protect him. Losing him shattered my world, and that's why just 1 month later, I helped launch Sandy Hook Promise, because I had one burning question: what could have been done to prevent this? Too often, warning signs are missed, misunderstood, minimized, or not escalated, and then it's too late. That's where upstream prevention becomes essential. We need systems that capture those warning signs, surface them safely, and translate them into action. That includes practices like fostering a positive school climate, teaching life and social skills, implementing threat assessment and behavioral screening programs, embracing restorative practices and non-exclusionary discipline, building trauma-informed cultures grounded in trust, safety, and student empowerment, and offering youth-led and non-remedial after-school programs that build confidence, leadership, and belonging. According to the U.S. Secret Service's National Threat Assessment Center, about 76% of perpetrators of mass violence between 2016 and 2020 exhibited warning signs beforehand, but in most cases, those signals never reached anyone who could help. Our Say Something Anonymous reporting system, or SARS for short, gives students and educators a direct and confidential anonymous way to report concerns. And that tip goes straight to our trained professionals who help triage and manage the tips. Since we launched that system, we have had over 343,000 tips from kids across the country. That's led to more than 5,000 mental health interventions, prevented now 19 credible planned school shootings validated by law enforcement, one just this past month, and saved over 1,000 students from suicide. We have the moral responsibility to build upstream protection, the expertise to guide implementation, and the opportunity right now to make this a turning point for Connecticut. We can create schools where every student feels seen, every threat is addressed early, and every child has the chance to thrive in safety. So let's make that our collective promise to each other and to every child who depends on us to keep them safe. Thank you.
We moved to Parkland, where we thought the schools were safe. It was beautiful. And then 10 years later, I sent Alex to high school, and he was murdered in the deadliest high school shooting in U.S. history. The Parkland murderer was a 19-year-old former student. He accumulated dozens and dozens of disciplinary incidents in school. He was violent out of school. Law enforcement was at his house over 40 times, and he had all the red flags of a future school mass murderer. There were a lot of information silos. So the school knew, obviously, that he was violent in class. Law enforcement knew what was happening outside, but nobody connected the dots. Every district must have a school-based threat assessment team and a district-based team. Every district must have a threat management coordinator now. A law enforcement officer must be present during every threat assessment. They need to be in the room. They need to be part of the process because you have a lot of information about what's happening in your school, but law enforcement has a lot of information about what's happening outside school. To connect the dots, we have to collect the dots.
We need to know the warning signs, we need to recognize the warning signs, and then we need to do something about it. How does that work? It works with forming multidisciplinary teams.
We brought a team of psychologists in and did a study looking at the impact of exposure to violent and traumatic content. And we found heightened levels of secondary traumatic stress symptoms, including a desire to withdraw, challenges with emotional regulation. Imagine out in the wild, that level of exposure to violent content amongst children who either are not telling anyone that they have seen it and may not even know where to go if they need help. And so early education matters. You can also do things about this. You can take some control of your online environment, and also that there is always access to safer options, always access to services and support.
As many of you may know, in May of 2022, a racially motivated attack happened at a Tops Friendly's market in Buffalo, New York, and it killed 10 people. This attacker based this attack on very superficial reasons, simply someone's skin color. And soon after, Governor Hockley signed Executive Order 18. The order also mandated that every county in New York State create a domestic terrorism prevention plan. It also created a threat assessment and management grant program, $10 million equally allocated across the counties in New York State. Prior to May 2022, we had already started with a targeted violence prevention strategy in New York State, and the goal after May 2022 was to proliferate that success across the state. So we moved from having 3 teams to now having 53 teams across New York State. TM teams were not mandated in New York State. The only mandate was the domestic terrorism prevention plan. So I point that out because I think it's important to demonstrate the appetite that the locals have for preventing targeted violence within their counties. And it really speaks to the dedication that they have in the work that they do.
We had 17 grants for $8.1 million to support behavioral threat assessment and management teams around the country. Those teams conducted 1,172 interventions. 6.5% had already crossed a criminal threshold or were an imminent threat to themselves or others, and they were referred to law enforcement for criminal justice accountability. We never surrendered public safety while improving public health. 93.5% of those individuals got help before there was an act of violence. And if you do the math on $8.1 million, that's $6,900 per intervention. If you make this investment and you go tell your resource managers at your schools, your workplaces, your county governments, your state legislators, if they make this investment, Connecticut will reap financial and public health benefits. You will save lives and money in spades, but you have to make the investment. If you demonstrate pilot program success, you can show them this is our evidence that our program in our school or our workplace works. So you don't have to wait for perfection from the top down to demonstrate success from the bottom up. Many states have statewide BTAM programs now because a school principal started a BTAM program. And then the district said, that's a good idea, let's do that. And after the district adopted it, the state said, well, we need to do this as well, right? So be a leader. We can do this in every school, in every family, and at the state level. And there's lots of experience to draw from to do it.
There's still so much to do, and we see that with the ongoing risks and threats out there that make sometimes our kids and our parents not feel safe. If you see something, say something. See if you can head off what could be a nasty situation before it happens.
I'm a mom, and when I hear about any parent who either worries about gun violence in schools, let alone has experienced the loss of a child in a school, it really does inspire us to act, to do as much as we can.
Hearing the impact that the loss of a loved one can have on your family, it impacts the entire community. It helps us consider what else should we be looking at? What's the root cause of all the violence? It's not just in the schools. What we see in our schools is just the tip of an iceberg. How can we all come together and be 5 times as successful?
One of the big things that I'm a big believer on is building those students up so they have the resilience, not only to be able to handle conflict, but they can also see when others are struggling with conflict and get interventions in as early as possible. And behavioral threat assessment is a key to that. It's a holistic approach to violence prevention.
When I kept hearing different initiatives or different groups talk about what they were doing and what they recommended, hearing that that's something already in place in West Hartford Public Schools made me feel so confident. One of the presenters today said they need to feel safe in the classroom to be able to learn. And so any way that we can create more pathways in that respect, I think, is our most important work.
Remember, you may be the key to thwarting violence. And secondly, we all exist as community members, and we're all responsible for looking out for one another.
The key thing is being vigilant, not becoming complacent, working towards our goal to ensure that our communities are safer.
Today really marked a milestone. We got the group together and we worked on recognizing our own first state strategy. But the momentum can't stop here. The energy in the room was enormous, and we're going to keep it going so that we can continue to ensure that Connecticut communities are safe for generations to come.